Is Tony Khan's All Elite Wrestling cannibalizing New Japan? My name is JJ. I love wrestling. And today, in our unscripted wrestling takes video, I want to talk about the situation that has fans in a tizzy between New Japan and AEW. So let's just jump right in. So as usual, I have some notes I've taken that I will refer to, but this video is unscripted, so I will try to not ramble for 10 million years. Now, you can be on probably two sides of this conversation about AEW's relationship or partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling. There seem to be two very strong camps on the side of people who don't like this partnership and think that it is problematic. There are the folks who think it's problematic because of what AEW is doing, and there are the folks who think it's problematic because of how New Japan's leadership is handling this partnership. And I can see the perspective from both sides, quite honestly. So I want to break down a couple of reasons on both sides of that argument where I can see the forbidden door issue that is happening. So if you are on the side that believes AEW is destroying New Japan as a promotion, or essentially killing them even as a promotion, there are a couple of major reasons that I kind of see repeated around this conversation. First is talent siphoning, point blank. A lot of the biggest stars in New Japan have moved over to full-time AEW contracts, and they rarely, if ever, show up back in the New Japan shows, especially in Japan. And so many people look at this partnership between New Japan and AEW as almost a feeder system for AEW to kind of leach out the best and brightest that New Japan has to offer and bring them over to work for AEW instead. Secondly, there is the perspective that New Japan talent gets kind of jobber treatment in crossover events between New Japan and AEW. So you will see those wrestlers come over to do shows, to do pay-per-views, to do specific crossover pay-per-views, and the attention, the acclaim, the push, the pyro, the staging, pretty much everything for those folks coming from New Japan is of a lesser quality than for those AEW signed talents. And you often see in those matches those New Japan talents not really getting the opportunity to showcase what they can actually do. So some long-term New Japan fans feel like, yes, AEW brings a New Japan talent to kind of satiate their side of the deal, just to job them out. Third is from a more purist perspective, and that is this idea that the westernization of New Japan's storytelling, certain segments, and promos, in order to kind of pander to or bring in those Western AW audiences, is weakening or destroying the cultural identity of New Japan as a strong style wrestling promotion. And you can see some of the differences over the years, pre and post Forbidden Door, where some of those storytelling nuances and things have changed, especially when there's crossover involved. And so some of those long-term New Japan fans simply don't like or understand why the culture of their wrestling promotion is changing in order to appeal to what they see as newer fans from a newer promotion, which is AEW. Now, on the other side of this argument are folks who think that the connection and relationship with AEW is one of the best things that's ever happened for New Japan, and feel like New Japan was in a really precarious financial situation coming out of the pandemic and with the weakening of the yen on the global market, right? And so there are a few kind of perspectives on that side where you might be able to see that maybe New Japan's leadership themselves are not fully utilizing these opportunities in a way that is frustrating to those long-term New Japan fans who want to see it thrive and continue. So some sentiment there, I think, is leadership not utilizing that AW exposure for fan conversion when it does come to US markets, right? So they're not taking all of those additional eyes that might be brought on the product and really marketing and advertising to them, making matches and segments available that Western audiences can more easily get access to and watch, and not really promoting or marketing very heavily when they are doing stateside shows touring through the United States. So folks really feeling like that leadership is almost expecting that AW relationship to be its own return on investment instead of them actually having a plan for how to like best utilize those brand new eyes and potential fans. I think second is there seems to be a lack, similarly to what they say on the AW side, on the New Japan side, there seems to be a lack of good reciprocity. They don't seem to do a good job really boosting or leveraging those AW stars when they are coming over to do those shows. And not really utilizing them as best as they could to boost those domestic gates in Japan and kind of be getting that money in through those different kind of ticket sales. It almost seems like when AW folks are going over to New Japan to participate in segments and matches, it's more focused on them playing a cameo role. So why it feels like AW sometimes jobs out New Japan talent, it seems like New Japan treats AW talent as not actually folks who are wrestling in the promotion, but more just folks who are coming to kind of make an appearance and more one-off versus really integrating them into that long-term storytelling in any meaningful way. And then maybe the third thing I see and can kind of understand is there seems to really be some creative stagnation at New Japan lately. And I say this as someone who's being a fan of New Japan obviously predates even the existence of AEW, so familiar with what their long-term storytelling has really looked like. But it really feels like they're not doing the work that they need to do to really build new homegrown talent that can be at the caliber of the talent they feel they've lost to AEW. And it seems like they're really over reliant on, unfortunately, aging talent that really isn't able to get it done in the ring the way that they may have been able to 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? We see this in all wrestling promotions when you become over reliant on nostalgia talent because you don't have a system to really build these new wrestlers. And so it looks like, you know, you can have a great champ, a Yoda who looks really strong, but then you have them getting squashed by a cameo talent appearance from someone who comes from AW that the crowd might not even be familiar with, right? So it feels to me like New Japan isn't doing enough to really truly build out New Japan and are over reliant on hoping that AW partnership is going to just kind of do the work for them. I think we saw this a little bit in the retirement match, an opportunity for some New Japan talent to really be put over in that kind of retirement tour, and just didn't really see that happening. It felt more like an opportunity for Tanahashi to kind of bang out a bunch of well-earned nostalgia matches, and the man has the right to wrestle at the end of his career whoever he wants, but it really felt like a loss of an opportunity there to really set the stage for who the next big talent who stays at New Japan is going to be. Now, I know they've tried to get around this by trying to enforce those multi-year starting contracts where you have to stay at New Japan for a certain number of years so that you can't move on to AEW after kind of getting your footing in New Japan. But those contracts have been met with pushback as well. You know, in times of economic struggle, talent is going to go where they have the best opportunity to make the money and get the access and the attention that's really going to grow their career. And with some of the economic struggles happening in many of these major markets that kind of grow and produce some of the best wrestling talent in the world, it is really difficult for any local promotion to hold on to them. And I think that is an unfortunate economic reality that is going to be the end of many incredible small indie and legacy promotions, or promotions that have been around for decades. In my opinion, I can see both sides of this story. There are things I wish AEW did differently, and there are things I wish New Japan was doing differently, separate of each other, and then also in that interlayered relationship that they do have. I am a Stardom girly, I'm a Joshi girly. There's so many different layers of wrestling coming through that forbidden door that I would love to see given a little bit more respect and dignity when presented in AEW. But that can only happen if that AEW Western fan base is willing to understand and accept the cultural components and significance of Japanese wrestling and what it exists to be. I think one of the greatest things about being a wrestling fan is that you get to see and access wrestling that shows the culture and the storytelling of athletes from all over the world. And I don't want us to lose that because everyone's kind of siphoning towards these two major promotions. That's it. I would love to know what you think about this topic down below. Be respectful, be nice, let's act like people, please, and thank you. My name is JJ. I love wrestling, and I'll see you in the next one.